Hi, I'm Darnell Weeks, otherwise known as the Myers fan or the Michael Myers fanatic. As you can see, here's Michael Myers with the crown on top of his head. I usually talk about the Halloween series and other horror movies and horror TV shows and things like that, but today I'm going to talk about one of my favorite childhood TV shows, and that's Boy Meets World. And we're going to get started in a second here. Just give me a second. Okay, as you can see here, Boy Meets World is or was, I guess you could say is and was, because technically it's not on the air anymore. It does not make current episodes. So technically it would be Boy Meets World was an American sitcom that was created and produced by Michael Jacobs and April Kelly. The show aired on ABC from September 24th, 1993 till May 5th of 2000, lasting 7 seasons. The show chronicles the everyday events and life lessons of Cory Matthews, played by Ben Savage. It also stars Cory's teacher, Mr. George Feeny, played by William Daniels, his best friend Shawn Hunter, played by Ryder Strong, brother Eric, played by Will Friedle, and love interest Topanga Lawrence, played by Danielle Fishel. Cory's father is played by William Russ. His name's Alan Matthews. His mother, Amy Matthews, is played by Betsy Randle. His sister Morgan was played by Lily Nicksay. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And she would later go on to be played by Lindsay Ridgway. Angela Moore is played by Trina McGee-Davis. Rachel McGuire played by Maitland Ward. Jonathan Turner played by Anthony Tyler Quinn. Eli Williams, Mr. Turner's friend, is played by Désert or Désert, however you say that. He would later go on to play as Jake Malinak in the TV series Becker, which ran from 1998 to 2004. And Jack Hunter, Sean's brother or half brother, is played by Matthew Lawrence during its later seasons. I like the show a lot. I'd heard about it, but I never actually watched it. I think I got into Boy Meets World around 1997, 1998, something like that. So by the time I got into Boy Meets World, it was on its way out the door, basically. I think they had 2 or 3 more seasons left. I used to wake up and watch it on Saturdays. It would be on Saturday mornings. One of the episodes I remember watching was when Jennifer Love Hewitt came to their school and they were being stalked by a killer, and it turned out that the killer was Shawn. I thought that was brilliantly written. It was creepy. It still creeps me out today because we all have a dark side to us. I don't fully understand the philosophical meaning behind the episode. So if maybe one of you Boy Meets World fans can explain that to me, I'd really appreciate that. The idea of having a killer or having some kind of evil force around it, and you unmask it and you find out it's you, that's just a creepy thought, altogether. So I really like that. I just had to point that out. One of the first episodes, well, the first episode, I should say, is the one where Cory is listening to a baseball game and he gets caught by Mr. Feeny. And Mr. Feeny basically detains him and he says, "You're going to learn something from me before you leave this classroom. Is that understood?" And Cory says, "Yes, sir." I have to say, this show is brilliantly written. I think Michael Jacobs and April Kelly did a wonderful job I've never seen such brilliant writing. This is some brilliant writing for a television sitcom. And I say that because you always learn something at the end of the day. And I really appreciate that. I'm going to cut this off for just a second. We learned lots of things as children watching Boy Meets World. We learned about things such as racism, which is kind of ironic because Boy Meets World did not feature a minority character until about, um, I think, season 5 when they brought in Angela Moore, played by Trina McGee-Davis. She was the first black character. I think, yeah, there were more black characters, but she was the first. And she was featured in season 5, and then they brought in her dad, and he was featured there. You know, he would make little cameo appearances. They had this one guy that was at the beginning that they didn't keep him long. I think his name was Harris something, Robert Harris or something Harris. Another thing they taught on Boy Meets World, and this is what really gets me, they would say there is no perfect family. That only exists in Hollywood. And the ironic thing is, they were a TV show. And they were telling you perfect families don't exist. And they don't. Every family has its problems. And that's the one thing I loved about Mr. Feeny. You always learn something from him. William Daniels did a terrific job. I wish I had a Mr. Feeny to sit and talk with me and teach me things. My favorite thing about the show is Cory Matthews, played by Ben Savage. Michael Jacobs, to me, did a fantastic job with Cory. I think he did the best job with Cory because one of the things I picked up on as a movie reviewer about Cory is that Cory had a set of beliefs that he lived by, and he never really strayed away from those beliefs. You know, he might get in trouble every now and then, but he would always find his way back. Despite his friends tempting him or trying to persuade him, he would always stick to his moral code. And I mean, he's had it since he was a little kid. And I'm wondering, well, did he learn it from his parents? If so, how come Eric didn't display these beliefs? Or, what's the daughter's name? Morgan, you know? Cory had this real strong moral fiber, and I really like that about his character. He reminds me of me, not because I'm perfect, but because Cory believes that you should be kind to everyone. He believes in doing the right thing. And I really admired that about the Cory Matthews character. And like I said, he displayed that even as a little boy. When most little boys think about doing bad things. I'm not going to say most, but some of them do. And he always wanted to do the right thing. So I like the Cory Matthews character. I can't name the episodes the way you guys can, but there was one episode where Shawn Hunter, played by Ryder Strong, he put a cherry bomb in a mailbox at Cory's dad's store. And Cory, you know, wanted Shawn to confess, and Shawn didn't want to do it. There were times where Cory would argue with Topanga because of the way she was treating him. I remember a lot of times Topanga, she would talk down to Cory, and there was one episode where they were doing this telemarketing thing, and he basically says to her, Topanga, I know you're smart, but why do you always have to throw it in my face? You know, and again, that just goes back to his moral fiber, that moral code that he lives by and that he believes in so strongly. Because he doesn't believe in looking down on people. And a lot of people like Eric Matthews, and I totally get that. Because Eric is funny. He's a lot of fun to watch. And I certainly have nothing against Will Friedle. I think he did a great job as Eric. It's just that I can relate more to Cory. Because to me, Eric was somebody that was there to relieve the tension. Somebody to make you laugh. So I felt like I couldn't really relate to Eric. You know, like I said, he's a lot of fun to watch. He would literally live up to that acronym LMAO, laugh my ass off, excuse my language, because this is supposed to be for kids, but the guy would literally have me laughing my ass off. You can't literally laugh your ass off, but you know what I mean. He was really funny, but at the end of the day, I identify more with people that I can relate to, you know, people that are like me. And I was more like Cory. Like I said, these were real people. That's why it was so relatable to me. Because some of these situations I lived myself. You know, I can relate to Cory's grandmother telling him she was going to come, her not coming, and him being disappointed. My father used to do that. You know, he would say that to me as a child, that he was going to do this and he was going to do that. And a lot of times he wouldn't do it. I'm just being real with you guys. Parents are not perfect. And as pathetic as it is to say, for a grown man to be saying this, I learned that from Michael Jacobs. Your parents are not perfect. Your grandparents are not perfect. They're just people. But because of Hollywood and what we see on TV, we get this vision of them and we put them in this mold of how we think they should be. And the bottom line, my friends, is life is just not like that. My dad told me a lot of things. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to do the other thing. And he didn't do it. And he promised me the moon and the stars. And he didn't do it. Because he's not a perfect person. That's just the way it is. It doesn't mean he didn't love me in his own way. So I can truly relate to this. Like I said, I can't name the episodes or the seasons like you guys. But another episode I remember is the one where everybody was leaving for the summer. Shawn was leaving. Topanga was leaving. And Cory didn't have anywhere to go. Eric was leaving. So Cory was at the basketball court and he was shooting baskets, and his brother Eric came to say goodbye to him, and they got into this big fight, I guess, but that was before they went to the basketball court. Again, I could relate to that because I fought with my brother because I wanted my brother to do things with me. But like the character of Eric, he wanted to hang out with his friends. And again, that's brilliant writing. Why? Because it gives you real life. It didn't give you a bunch of damn nonsense. And excuse my expression, all you parents out there, I don't mean any harm, but this is literally one of the best TV shows I've ever seen. Because it didn't give you a bunch of that nonsense that they have on today. It taught you about life and that things are going to happen to you in life. And it's up to you to choose how you deal with it. Now, you can either cower in a corner somewhere and hide, or you can face it and deal with it. In that same episode that I'm talking about where Cory and Eric have this fight, and Eric decides to take Cory on the road for this road trip, they end up in this town where everything's perfect and they're eating some kind of pie which doesn't have a name, it's just called pie. And it was kind of strange because it was like a sort of Twilight Zone kind of thing. You know, it was like a place that was not of this world. It was a town where everybody was friends and everything was perfect and the pie was just called pie. And I can relate to that because it was almost like an alternate reality of sorts. And I'm a big Twilight Zone fan. So I was like, oh, when I saw that, this would make for a good Twilight Zone episode. Where this little boy, maybe he's upset with his family, but then he goes to this town where everyone loves each other, but then he decides that it's too perfect for him, and he wants to go back to the way things really are. You know, something like that. There was the character of, what's his name, Stuart Minkus, and Stuart Minkus was played by Lee Norris. And again, this is one of those things that didn't quite make sense. One minute he's there, next he isn't, he just disappears and reappears later in the show, like Mr. Turner. Well, Mr. Turner didn't reappear, but he did off screen, and coincidentally, right when Minkus reappeared, he yelled, "Mr. Turner, wait!" So he yelled for him even though he was off screen. Like I said, those are really the only things I didn't like about the show, where they left some things that were kind of unexplained, and then Mr. Turner reappears in Girl Meets World and he says, well, I was taken care of by a nurse. So they couldn't show that. Again, I have nothing against the people that came in during the later seasons, like what's the girl's name, Rachel, and Angela, but no offense to Maitland Ward, and if I could get her for an interview and I could do a Boy Meets World segment on my channel, that would be great. But if I'm being perfectly honest, I didn't like the character of Rachel because she sort of played Jack and Eric against each other. And I don't like stuff like that. I told you guys, I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I do have a set of beliefs that I live by. And even if it's a storyline, if it goes outside of what I believe, I don't like it. That's just how I am. And I don't think it's cool to play people against each other. That's just not my thing. She knew that they both had a crush on her and she was using it. She should have sat down with them and said, I know you guys have a crush on me, but you know what? It's not that type of party. We can be friends, but I'm not going to come in between you guys because you're friends. That's the way I think that should have been handled. So I don't really like the Rachel character because that was grimy. I don't like stuff like that. Don't play friends against each other. There was an episode where Cory felt guilty because he wished Mr. Feeny ill. That was pretty cool. That goes back into that whole Twilight Zone thing, and where he had a dream about killing Mr. Feeny. I enjoyed that because, like I said, it goes back into that whole Twilight Zone kind of thing. I'm a Twilight Zone fan, and so I like that whole dream or alternate reality kind of thing. I'm sorry I couldn't give you more of the comical moments, but like I said, I'm a very serious person. I laugh and joke sometimes, but for the most part, I'm a serious person, and I really liked Boy Meets World because it taught me a lot as a kid, and I think kids can learn a lot from it. Like I said, the only gripes I had with it was its lack of racial diversity. Other than that, I thought it was a fantastic show. Great writing, great acting. Everything was just up to par, on point. They get an absolute A+. It has everything: horror, comedy, drama. And like I said, for you Twilight Zone fans out there, it even has a few Twilight Zone moments. Like the time when Cory thought he killed his teacher and had a dream about it. If you want horror, they have an episode where they're running from a killer only to find out that the killer is Shawn. There's even an episode where Cory's the killer, so it has a little bit of everything in there. I'm not going to stay here too much longer. I'm about to get off. This has been Boy Meets World that ran from 1993 to 2000. There was even an episode where Shawn's father died, and there's an episode where Shawn joins a cult, and Shawn feels lost because of Mr. Turner's bike accident, and just all kinds of goodies in here. I absolutely love the show, and I'm truly thinking about purchasing it on DVD. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Boy Meets World, created by Michael Jacobs and April Kelly. It ran from 1993. I believe it says from September 24th of 1993 to 2000. Mr. Feeny dropped one of the most epic lines in television history. He said, "Sometimes the things you complain most about are the things you care most about." Everybody keeps telling me, "Oh, you always complain about the Halloween movies, the Michael Myers movies." It's because it's what I care about. So that's my way of showing you that I care about it. But anyway, guys, I'm going to get off of here. Boy Meets World from 1993 to 2000. I'm so sorry that Girl Meets World did not live up to it at all. I think it's because of the environment that it was placed in. It was a Disney show, so there was only so much they could do. I think if anything, It should have been picked up by Netflix, and they would have had more freedom. So, anyway, Boy Meets World, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for listening. I really appreciate it. I'm the Michael Myers fanatic, and I approve this message. I do have to say one thing I didn't like about it, though. There is an episode where Cory's dad basically says that horror movies are trash, and he rips the tape up that they're watching. They're watching a movie about a serial killer that blows up people's heads. He literally makes their heads explode. And Cory's dad is all like, I don't want that trash in his house. But then his daughter Morgan dresses up like a zombie with an eyeball hanging out of her head and a meat cleaver in her head. And to me, that was hypocritical. So you don't like horror movies, but you let your children celebrate Halloween. Something that's centered on horror. That was a little hypocritical to me. That didn't make any sense. But that's just another one of those little gripes that I have with the show. Other than that, like I said, I really liked it. But that little part didn't make any sense. Alright guys, thank you again.